Good morning and welcome to the Fire in the Belly podcast. And we're the show, and we're talking here again with Pat Slattery this morning, talking about some outstanding things. So, first of all, good morning, Pat.
Good morning, Pete. Wonderful to be here again.
Listen, great to have you on. So, this week's chosen topic is we've sort of taken a bit of a hypothesis and said to be successful, you must be effective and efficient. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, well, look, it resonates to a certain point, right? But I think what's really important here is to get the understanding of this and which is most important, or and what way you deliver it and how you understand it and what it means. So I think there may be some even parts of what we're going to discuss here this morning a little bit contradictory to even what we're saying here. Who knows, But it is about getting the outcomes, getting the desired outcomes that people want. And to be successful, you must be effective and efficient. Like when we talk about being effect, when we have to discover what effect is, and effect is really to cause to come into being. So maybe when we talk about you have to be effector, or maybe your cause, not effect. Who knows, right? So we can have that conversation as we go on, and discover a little bit more. But certainly effectiveness is going to be key here for sure.
Makes sense, I suppose. And listen, we're all so aware that there's never been so much opportunity out there. There's never been so much connection. There's never been, listen, it's the world is a faster place. I'm not saying a better place, but certainly a faster place. So, gone are the days of, being able to get a hold of information. Now it's a case of there's more information than we can ever chew in 10 lifetimes, right? So it's, we need a different attitude to it.
It's interesting you just said there, right? That I'm not so sure the world is a better place, right? I believe it is, actually. I believe, of course. I mean, listen, we may be going through a situation we're going through right now, but the world is always a better place if we make it a better place. I mean, I often hear people say, remember the good old days, the good old days. Well, some of those days weren't so good, and I certainly don't want to go back there, So I can, everything is what it is. It's an experience, it's a journey, it's part of what we're at. And if you choose your own experience, you choose your own journey, then the world is always a better place if you make it that way. And that doesn't mean it doesn't come without its challenges and things you'll have to overcome. Of course it does. But, that's happened in the past too, right? I mean, you had to overcome challenges and stuff in the past too. So, you know what? It's just another day. It's just another day of turning up and being the best you can be and enjoying life and being part of it. Really, being part of it. If I guess if you want the world to be a better place, be part of that. Be part of that process. And therefore, then it will.
I mean, to you, I mean, what does taking each word, I suppose, separately, and really, what is being effective?
Okay, well, I suppose to think about each word separately, right? I mean, have to, I guess, effectiveness, right? Or, being effective means it's about doing the right tasks, completing activities, and achieving goals. That's the meaning of effectiveness, right? Efficiency is about doing things in an optimal way. For example, doing it the faster or in the least expensive way. Now, sometimes efficiency, it can be the wrong thing, right? But it was done optimally. Okay, so I think Mir Ezra, I think, said that efficiency. Oh, no, sorry. If you're totally willing to accept that you're never effect, you will never lose, right? So, I think as we just started here to understand what that means. If you're never effect, you will never lose, which means therefore you have to be the cause of the effect, right? Effect is the outcome. Effect is what you're going to get. Remember it. And what you're going to achieve at the end, but you are cause, you're not effect. So if you were to think about it being effective or effect, then there's things you have to take into account. Like you have to get a good understanding of how to perform at your highest level, how to execute, how to accomplish, how to achieve, how to fulfill. So for instance, like if you look at performing in terms of being effective or effect, it implies that action that follows an established pattern or procedure or fulfills an agreed upon a requirement, or it often needs a special skill, right? So you have to, in order to perform, so performance is going to be something that's going to be really important when you think about being effective. Execution, right, stresses the carryout of what exists in a plan or in an intent, right? So we've often talked about, the intention, paying attention to your intention. So in order to execute it, paying attention to that intention, right? So it's working the plan, it's carrying out what exists in the plan and creating the plan. Then we have to think about effect. We can't think about effect without thinking about accomplish. And again, if you understand if you think about accomplishing, it stresses the successful completion of a process rather than the means of carrying it out, right? So again, it's a completion of a process rather than the means of carrying it out. And we'll touch on this in a little while because we'll get a bit more in depth into what all this means. Because for most people, they get so focused on trying to carry out it that they actually forget that the completion is probably more important, right? So then you have to start thinking about achievement or accomplishment again. So achievement or achieve adds to accomplish in the implication of conquering difficulties, getting over difficulties, right? You often hear people say you've achieved greatness. Well, the greatness is an effect of something that you achieved, right? Or something that you've done. So when we think about the effect, we have to think that the effect is that the end result. Okay. Then of course, when you think about effect adding to achieve, which really is just that inherent force that you have, which will make you capable of surmounting any obstacle, right? So doing whatever it is you need to do. And then of course we have to start talking about fulfilling, right? If you understand the effect when it's attached to fulfilling a task, it really implies that it's a complete realization of possibilities, or you've often heard people say they fulfill their possibilities. So if you have fulfilled your possibilities, then therefore that must be an effect of something that you've caused. Does this make sense? Or am I talking double Dutch? You know, what I want to try and do is try and keep it as simple as I can possibly, take the science out of this and keep it as simple as I can possibly keep it. And again, for anybody who's paying attention to this, remember, this is just my opinion, right? And this is an opinion based on a lot of experience, I guess. And I'm going to share my opinion with you today. Whether you like it or not, you're going to hear it, right? But so, you know, when we think about effect, we have to attach all the other words to it too, and all the other understandings and meanings, so we understand what effect means. So again, a definition of effect would be a change that results when something is done or happens, an event, a condition, or a state of affairs that is produced by a cause, right? So I think, you know, Pete, for me, one of the greatest laws, we talk about the laws of the universe, one of the greatest laws for me and the laws of success is the law of cause and effect, right? So effect is what you get, cause is what caused it, and what was probable that you may have done in order to achieve that cause or that outcome. So, you know, so I guess let's get stuck into your understanding, Ari. And I talk about you, I'm talking about anybody who's paying attention here. So question I have for you, maybe, have you ever finished a whole list of tasks, right? You've done filled the whole list of tasks, but then you realize at the end of the day that you didn't really achieve much.
Might have happened on occasions, yeah.
Yeah. Well, my experience has taught me that many people do. Okay. And so why is this? Why is it that so many people create a whole list of tasks but then still feel underachieved, right? And my opinion really is the reason is probably that they weren't efficient but not effective. Okay, that they may have been efficient but not effective. Now, I'm going to quote the great Thomas Edison here, and he says that being busy does not always mean real work. The object of all work is production or accomplishment, and to either of these ends there must be forethought, system, planning, intelligence, and honest purpose, as well as perspiration. And when we understand this is, when we talk about effectiveness and efficiency, there is a bit of a difference. Okay, people can be very efficient in doing stuff, but they may not be effective with the outcome. Does this make sense? That's why I often say to people, listen, it's easy to get busy doing stuff. It's easy to get busy taking actions and actions and actions and actions. But what we want to do is make sure that we're doing the actions that are correct. So efficiency and effectiveness, they sound similar, but actually have a very different meaning. Efficiency is the ability to do tasks quickly, regardless of whether or not they're important, while effectiveness is the ability to choose and do the most relevant tasks to your goal. Efficiency enables you to do a task quickly, even if the task is irrelevant to your goals, while effectiveness helps you to achieve your goals by ensuring that your time is invested in only the most important tasks. So we'll touch a little bit more on it. So if we think of it like this, think of it like driving a car. Okay, if you have a nice fast car, the speed of the car is like efficiency, right? However, it doesn't matter how fast the car is traveling if it's traveling in the wrong direction, right? You might have a car that's running smooth, it can run as fast as you want to run, but if it's going in the wrong direction, it might be very efficient, but it's not very effective if you're going in the wrong direction, right? So the direction of the car is what defines its effectiveness, right? So this is where, and this is where I see so many people become frustrated. Look, in all the years I'm in this industry, I see so many people become frustrated with this because they're doing an awful lot of stuff, but they're not getting the desired results. You're very efficient in getting things done, but not effective in the outcome. Okay, so you have to think about, again, in terms of driving the car, that traveling in the right direction and being effective ensures that you waste as little time as possible. Because the one thing that most people need to get is a return on their time, a return on their energy. And time doesn't wait for no man. You've all heard that one many times before. Okay. So it's about being effective rather than being efficient. And there's an element of efficiency that you're going to need as well, which we'll touch on as well throughout today. And hopefully I can explain this in a very simplistic way. But I want you to always remember this: effectiveness is almost always better than efficiency. Okay, effectiveness is almost always better than efficiency. So let's get thinking that way. The art of effectiveness is avoiding useless work that shouldn't be done in the first place. That's the difference. Now, and I mean this respectfully, because for most people that I've met in life, most people get on doing stuff. Most people get out to try and keep doing stuff and trying to learn along the way. And and they can be quite efficient at doing this and getting things done and ticking boxes and learning more and and failing forward, as we might say, right, in terms of learning more about the process as they're becoming more efficient. But that's not always effective. And this is why I always suggest to people, listen, success leaves clues, right? Follow the people who've already laid the footpath for you. Pay attention to what they've done. You might go off a little bit and tweak a few things along the way, but to be more effective means that you discover a system, a plan, which again we will talk a little bit more about here this morning to elaborate maybe a little bit more. Or maybe I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here this morning, and if I am, great, because I got to quote my one guy I used to learn from. God, he's one of the first people actually I ever came across, was a great Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar says that the mother of all learning is repetition, repetition, repetition. So sometimes I'm going to repeat a few things here today in order to try and make sure that this message is very clear to people, okay? Because I want to make sure I create the correct effect on you, okay? And at least be a little bit efficient by doing it. So, so again, when you avoid useless work, you get to spend zero time with a minimal loss because it's unimportant. Now, see, people keep confusing things, but it has to get done. And I still need to do it. And I still need to show up in your own mind. Maybe subconsciously you feel that you have to be doing something. But if it's unimportant, it's really not that important. And if it's unimportant, it's really not that effective. It may be still efficient. It'd be lovely to see things done. Like I don't care. I don't mind, but I've got to get something done. I've gone into places where, I've gone into let's say retail outlets, different businesses, premises, and I spend so much time making the place look beautiful. And that's efficient, but it's not effective, because the purpose of their business is to sell more of their products, right? They bring more customers in to be able to produce more of whatever they want to produce. And the prettiest doesn't always make a difference. It's efficient, but it's not effective. I'm more interested in what's effective. If you give me a messy office, I really don't care. If you give me a messy business, I don't care, as long as it's effective, right? So so sometimes I see people. I've had somebody work for me in the past. I won't say where because I don't want to be disrespectful. But what an incredible cleaner, right? I've never met anybody clean as much in my entire life. And especially anytime I happened to come into the business, they were clean, doing stuff, because I was there and I was doing stuff. And I thought, this looks wonderful, it's fantastic, but that's not what you're here to do, right? Let's start selling more stuff here. That's what you're here to do, right? So it's nice and efficient, but it's not effective. So let's be a little bit more effective. So again, when you understand how important it is to focus on the important tasks and not the unimportant tasks, then you're more effective. So, like, remember, no amount of efficiency increase can reduce the time taken for a task to zero. Right? This is so important that you realize this. Now, this is why it's always better to be effective than efficient. So I'm going to share some ideas with you how to be more effective. Okay. So how can you be more effective? Number one is have a not to do list. Imagine that. Most people tell you to go in and create a to do list. Okay. And I meet a lot of people who spend a lot of time building their to do list. So sometimes you have to think about when planning your day, the most straightforward way to make sure that you're working on useful tasks while avoiding worthless tasks which seem useful is ask yourself which work is really essential and will really make an impact, while labeling and writing down work that is not really productive, such as excessive email checking. Who do you know people who check emails? Right now, you said it here at the start, Pete, right? We're in a world right now where information is so easily at hand. I mean, we have so much distractions like your phone and your email and your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram and your LinkedIn and your what else, Tumblr and wow, and there's pings and pongs and there's beeps and tweets and everything going on, and all the people are being distracted, right? And and all of a sudden they become distracted and they say, I have to check my email, I have to keep checking my email, and I have to check my messages. We have WhatsApp now as well, right? So all these different things have to be checked consistently over and over and over by people, and it's actually excessive, useless work, right? It's excessive, efficient work maybe, but it's not really effective. Okay, so you're gonna have to create a not to do list. And as well as a to-do list, by the way. Okay, and a not to-do list is helpful because it makes you more aware of useless tasks. You've got to be checking what you're doing, and sometimes, respectfully, it might be people. I think I shared this story with you before, Pete, but I had a client, an old client of mine, from many years ago, and has a tendency to keep answering the phone to every call. And so, you're going to get some people who are going to get in the way of you being effective if you're not careful with your time. And there was one person, and I happened to be with this man one day, and the call came on, and he spent a lot of time on the phone. Put down the phone and go, every time I ask myself, why don't I answer the phone to this person? They just zap my energy, zap my time, and it's of no use whatsoever to either of us. And so I said, well, you're going to have to find a way to not answer that phone to that person unless you have the time to give. And a couple of years later, I happened to go back to Limerick, and ironically, I was having a coffee with the same man, and the phone rang, and he started laughing. He said, look, Pat, he said, I took your advice. And he showed me his phone, and on his phone, the phone was ringing, and the name that came up was Don't Answer. So that was his not to do list. He was on not to answer the phone to this person because it was taking up time. So now this might sound a bit callous and so forth, but you got to remember here, these are your goals, these are your dreams, these are the things that you want to achieve, and you've got to be effective, and you can't get sucked away from people who don't get it. Okay, it's really important. So a not to do list will make you a little bit more aware of useless tasks. Okay, things that are not going to work with you. And with a not to do list, you're going to see through fake work that seems like work. Okay, now again, I mean this respectfully, because I've been challenged in this one before, and people say, "Oh, I'm not doing fake work. All this has to be done." Well, we'll discover this a little bit more further on. We'll see what you believe in at the end of this talk. But I believe that an awful lot of people spend a lot of time doing fake work, which seems like work. Okay, but if you keep your to-do list as short as possible and order it from the most important to the least important, so that you do the most important tasks first. Now, this is really crucial here because you've met Brian Tracy, Pete, and we all know that wonderful book Eat That Frog, right? And Eat That Frog is about doing the biggest tasks first, getting them done, getting them out of the way. Now, I look at all the books that I have, and I've got some really great books, and I'm going to talk about one or two in a moment. But I took a few off my shelf here because all of these people, right? Brian Tracy here, the absolute 100 absolute unbreakable laws of business success, right? Then, of course, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, and then The Leader in You by Dale Carnegie. Now, these books are age-old books, and I have multiple others, but this message is very clear in all of them, okay? Keep your to-do list as short as possible. Order it from most important to least important, and then commit to doing the most important tasks first. Now, here's another tip for you. Avoid perfectionism. Okay, avoid perfectionism and just do it. I've met so many people who are waiting for the perfect moment to start, or and the chances are, by the way, it's not coming. Okay, I've yet to meet anyone who has got that perfect moment or the perfect time. Because if you're waiting for perfection, if somebody's saying, I'll wait now until I have this perfect, or write that book, I'll wait until it's perfect, all right, writing that program, I'll wait until it's perfect, or I have this dream, the goal, I'll wait until I get everything, all my lines in order and all my apples in order, and I'll go and be perfect. Once it's perfect, I'll start. The reality is, if you're waiting for perfection, how much progress are you making? Chances are none. Okay, so but however, if you get involved in the process and you start and you decide, I'm going to get involved in the process, I'm going to look at a handful of, by the way, when I talk about to-do list, we're talking about a short to-do list, not a large to-do list. Okay. Well, when you look at what's the most important task and you get involved in the process, then you're going to start making progress. Okay. Now, the other thing I want people to understand, because when we talk about effectiveness and efficiency, right, it's easy to carry out tasks that you want to do. Right now, some people and I'm going to make sure I want to clarify what I mean in this one, because it's important that people understand it. So it's easy to carry. Most people carry out tasks that they think they want to do, not necessarily tasks that they want to do, because they think they want to do it because it's easy to do, just to get something done. People who are efficient carry out lots of tasks like this, and they go through them and think it's easy, and they fly through them and keep them through them. But the reality is, what you've got to discover is what you want to do. Then it becomes easier to carry out what you really want to do. Now, the challenge is maintaining the same level of productivity for less attractive tasks. Okay. You've got to be productive with your come across as a less attractive tasks. Usually, most people know what they need to do each day, but sometimes avoid doing it in favor for less important or easier tasks. Now, for those of people who do this, even though they may have to be done, no one's denying that these tasks don't have to be done, but they may be less important tasks or easier tasks. And this is, for me, this is, again, efficiency at its greatest, right? People doing less important or easier tasks. Now, the reason I want people to become aware of this, if you find yourself doing less important or easier tasks, even though they may have to be done, it's going to take you a lot longer to reach that level of success that you want to reach. You get there, but it's going to take you a lot longer. And the journey is going to be tougher, because you get in the habit of doing what we call, now you've heard of the term procrastination. But this time we're going to call it workcrastination, right? Workcrastination, which means doing work, but not actually doing the work that's really important. Now, ask yourself right now, are you a workcrastinator? There you go. I'm losing my words in the fun I'm having there, right? But are you a workcrastinator? Right? Are you the person that does the work, but not actually doing the work that's really important? So the workcrastinator can work incredibly efficiently and get tasks done quickly. But because they're working on the unimportant while avoiding the important, they ultimately won't get nearly as much done as a more effective person. Now, this is something I've noticed. I've been in and out of organizations for many years, or dealing with different partners and partnerships in business. And we have the workcrastinator who really gets annoyed with the effective person, because it may look like the effective person is not doing as much. Why? Because they're so effective, they seem to have more time to enjoy their life. But the workcrastinator is the person who can keep working incredibly efficiently, right? Getting tasks done, but they're getting the less important tasks done and avoiding the important. And that's why they tend to work sometimes 10 times harder than a more effective person. And that's why the workcrastinator gets really annoyed with the effective person who seems to have the better life, who seems to be having everything better, and think that it's unfair that they seem to do most of the work. Maybe you might think I'm being unfair, but this is just my opinion based on a lot of experience. So don't be a workcrastinator. Go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say there's loads, isn't it? Really, there's people and paradigms and things that people pick up, and even as a young fella, you're told keep yourself busy, and there it's things that, as you said, it has to be done, or it's the way it's always been done. So that's just what we do, or and God forbid you're actually sitting there doing nothing. Two arms, was it two arms there's the same length or whatever the expression is, so it's always a case of doing something, but then that could very easily be taken into doing unnecessary tasks or you know
Yeah, look, I mean, and you're right, but for people who are starting out, right, and they may have not discovered that yet, well, sometimes being efficient, as long as you understand while you're being efficient, that you got to keep checking whether you're being effective, right, and finding the most important tasks while being efficient, because that's part of the learning too. I mean, right, we get this and we understand that it's part of the learning for some people. They have to start doing something rather than doing nothing. But don't busy yourself doing something. You've got to be able to question and measure it too, right? And and when you get an understanding of be measurable about your tasks, you can ask yourself, well, am I a work procrastinator or am I being effective? I prefer to be effective any day. I mentored a company where I had two people in the same job, and they were in sales, and one guy was an incredible worker. Gotta say, and he is an incredible guy. And I will say, this is 20 years later now. He's still a good friend of mine. And I remember 20 years ago, we were in one of my masterminds, and we were talking about different frustrations. And he just out of the blue lost a head about his work colleague. Right? And I said, "What?" He said, "He drives me crazy. He's driving me crazy." I said, "Why?" He said, "It's just wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong, Pat. It's unfair." He said, he's on the golf course every day. He said sometimes he's out there twice a day playing golf, twice a day. He said, I'm in the same job. He said, I can't get a day off. I'm working 6, 7 days a week. I said, okay, and what's he bringing in? Yeah, but he said, but you know what's even more sickening? He said, he has about 13 clients and he's bringing in nearly 7 million in sales every year. I said, okay, and what are you at? He said, I'm at about 40 clients and I'm bringing in about 2.5 million. Right. And why does he annoy you? It's because it's not fair, Pat. He said, it's not fair that I'm putting in the work, that I have to work all these clients and I have to put in the time and he can go out playing golf with them. It's not fair. Well, I said, okay. So in this case, are you being more efficient than you are effective? Or is he being more effective than you are? Or is he being more effective than he would be if he's being efficient? Now, there was a bit of fierce conversation for a while before he accepted it. And he realized that he was a work procrastinator. And realized that this doesn't serve me actually. He needs to be more effective. And thankfully he did and left his job and set up his own company in competition and is doing about 20 million now. And he's very effective. Very effective. He's got a real understanding of what he needs to get done in order to achieve what he wants to achieve. And that's true effectiveness. So in that case, if he wasn't prepared to pay attention or didn't step up and join my mastermind where we got to work and go through this and understand what it needs to become effective, then chances are he would still be a work procrastinator. He would still be efficient. And by the way, get paid really well and be loved by the people in his job because he seems to always get a lot done. But it doesn't balance out on the bottom line. Right? So, again, when we start thinking about moving on from being a work procrastinator to be an effective person, the best way to avoid that problem is to avoid perfectionism and just do it. Now, fear of failure and not knowing what to do can prevent people from starting important tasks. Okay. Now, sometimes even the ego gets in the way. Okay. So, important tasks are important, but you don't want to mess up. So that's kind of where the fear gets in the way. Now, the fear of messing up, you might think it might make you look silly, but again, that's just the ego. So forget about looking silly because it really doesn't matter. Actually, if you're being effective, it really doesn't matter. Sometimes you might appear silly to other people because they don't get it. You might appear silly to the person who's working in efficiency. It doesn't matter. Get over it. Right? It doesn't matter. So don't be fearing looking silly. And even if it did look silly and it's still moving you towards your goals, who cares? Who cares? Right? So it doesn't matter. So first of all, it's really important that you realize that not doing a task is often just as bad as doing it badly. Okay, and even if you do end up making mistakes, you can always fix them. This is part of your learning process. This is when we talked about getting started earlier. For some people, they're afraid of, well, I don't know what to do, how to do, what to do. Do something. You know, don't sit back and say, oh, and deliberate too much around going, I wonder if I do that, will it be effective or efficient? And spend weeks trying to figure out, are you being effective or efficient, right? Sometimes you've got to get started, and once you're on the process, you can figure out, is this being effective or is it being efficient? So sometimes get involved, okay? And because if you make mistakes, you can always fix them. And welcome mistakes, by the way. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. So the best way to beat work procrastination or any other form of procrastination is to just jump in, start the task, and accept that you will probably make mistakes, which will be fixed later. Now, bring this mindset to each day and notice how much more you get done. And once you understand this, you start to build a little bit of momentum around being more effective. And you see, here's what always happens too. I mean, when I won't say always, but quite a lot, right? Quite a lot of the times when I meet with people and I work with people and we get to this point, people kind of go, how do I find out? How do I know? How do I motivate myself? How do I find the motivation to do this? But I want you to understand something here. Motivation follows action. Okay? Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Most people are looking for motivation to take action, and it doesn't really work that way. Motivation follows action, right? Now, conventional wisdom says that motivation precedes action, but I don't believe that, right? And I'll explain a little bit more again, because again, it's very difficult to become effective if you're waiting to be motivated. Okay, so most people say things to themselves like, I'll start this task when I feel motivated to do it. But the truth is, though, motivation rises and falls over time. Okay, your motivation is going to go up and down. Okay, so you're going to have to just accept that sometimes you will have to do tasks even when you're not motivated. Even when you're not motivated. If I had to wait for every time I was motivated, I probably wouldn't have got much done. Right? So even when you're not motivated, you're going to have to do them. This is what's going to make the difference between you being really and truly effective in your life and your business. So, but once you start the task, though, you'll often find that your level of motivation increases as you start to make progress. You know, when you get that first little win, that thing, even though it was tough, right? You get that first little win. Maybe even if you decide you want to go running a marathon you've never ran before, you know, when you make that first mile, when you break that first mile, and you go, oh, I've done a mile. I couldn't do 100 yards last week. Now I've done a mile. And then you break through the next mile, and eventually you get to the 10-mile mark and you break through to that. That's going to motivate you to keep going regardless. So your motivation sometimes comes after the action. Well, I believe almost always, to be honest with you, right? It's easier to be motivated after you achieve an action and you do something. So, you know, because then that increases your progress. You start to make more progress once you start feeling more motivated, right? So the reality is that starting the task is the main hurdle to get past or to get over, right? And starting the task is like a hurdle, but once it's cleared, it's usually followed by flat land. Okay, it's usually followed by flat land. So get over that hurdle. It's going to get easier. The more you do it, the more progress you make. So once you started, you usually pass most of the motivation friction that finishing the task won't nearly be as difficult as you thought. Someday you go, how did I get here? We wake up like magic. I must have been lucky. Okay. So procrastination, by the way, is often caused by the inability to start tasks. And usually it's that fear and the lack of motivation, if you like, for most people, the way they think, or is it lack of action? So if you take action, chances are you will be more motivated, right? It's like, you know, I'll bring you back to your youth here, Pete. You know, you remember going to the disco and you wanted to ask a girl up to dance, right? And you're thinking, oh no, I can't do it. And you're trying to figure out, you're building yourself up, and then you ask her, and then she says yes, and then you feel great, and you go, and then you realize, no, this wasn't the girl for me. I better go and ask another one. I hope your wife is watching this, by the way, Pete. And then you decide, okay, well, I'll go and ask another. And every time they say yes, then it becomes easier. right? It's not as difficult as you thought, right? But it's the inability to start the task that gets in the way. Now, the work procrastinator will start something other than the task, such as checking email, and will feel like they're making progress. The work procrastinator will start something other than the task, such as checking an email, and they will think that they're making progress. So they'll get on, better check the emails, better do this, better put the kettle on, better do this, better do that, better do all this, better wipe down this, better clean that. Right. And then how is that working for you to sell your products? How is it working for you towards your goals? Okay. So when the work chronometer starts this, what's actually happening is that the tasks that need to be done have still not been started, and nothing of value is really being achieved. Now, again, I got to say this respectfully, and I got to say this cautiously, because I really want you to understand here, because I don't want people to feel um, underachieved by doing tasks. I just want you to become more aware of where you're at, because my goal here is, by sharing this with you, picked this topic for me this morning, Peter. I want to make sure that people get an understanding how to be more effective. Okay, so again, when you understand that the checking emails, doing stuff that's really not of value, then there's nothing of value being achieved. Now, I understand that, by the way, some people are going to watch this or listen, pay attention, go, what are you on about? Emails have to be checked. Of course they do. Maybe it is. In some cases, that might be the first task, the most important task in the morning when you start your business. It could be, right? But I'm just using it as an example. Okay. But I have discovered an awful lot of people spend time checking emails that are not really of any value. Okay. So when you're struggling to start a task, remember, starting in it is always the hardest part. You can even promise yourself that you can stop working once you start the task. So try this, and you'll find out that you are often willing to continue working on the task. However, don't expect it to be easy. Many tasks, even like turning up here to give this talk, are challenging, even once you get started, right? I mean, I've turned up to do this talk here this morning, and as most Pete doesn't give me very much notice. And matter of fact, I thinking about it, and I processed it in my head, and he decided he was going to change topics this morning. I said, no, absolutely not. I've been focused and get my head into this space, right? But the reality is they're challenging, because I want to make sure I get and I can communicate to you guys. I can communicate to people the message that I want to communicate in a way that it's understood. So sometimes they're not easy, right? Sometimes the work that's required to achieve your goal is not easy, right? And usually it's not, by the way. Usually it's not. But the fact that your work is challenging, or even doing this is challenging, that's not necessarily bad. In fact, I believe that if work is challenging, is usually a good sign. And to consistently improve and make progress, you're going to have to do new things. You're going to have to get outside your comfort zone, and occasionally you may actually have to fail, or maybe actually learn. Right? The problem is not that an activity is challenging. It's when you see it as a negative. So when I come on here this morning to do these talks, I can say, okay, what if I do bad? What if this? And I see a negative, and I create a negative around it. And then that's where the real challenge is going to be. And that's what's going to be very hard and difficult to do it. So it's the same if you've got a task or a job to do. You're going to see, if you see it as, I don't really want to do this, I don't like it, I don't do all this kind of stuff. If you see it as a negative, it's going to be very difficult to get it done. So the wrong approach is to start with the expectation that the activity you're doing is going to be easy. Don't assume it's going to be easy all the time. It really is to get started. And when I started in this industry, I have to step into a talk like this in the beginning. I was a nightmare. I was terrified. But I had to see beyond it, and I changed it just like this. And I started thinking differently around how we do it, and therefore it helped me become more effective. Okay, so the wrong approach that you can start with an expectation that an activity you're going to do will be easy. If you're setting goals, you're setting dreams, you want to build a business, don't have that approach that it's going to be easy. Okay, if you have this mindset, you will be surprised and possibly discouraged about how challenging it is. I've met so many people who said, I thought it'd be easier than this. Thought it'd be much easier. And I set out this, and unfortunately, we often discuss the problem is the effect of that is that the people who sit in the sidelines go, I told you so, right? And all of a sudden it creates a completely different effect. And if you go in with the intention and thought that it's always going to be easy and it's not, then you're going to change the cause to create the effect that you want to create. Okay. So, if you have the mindset that it's going to be easy, you could be surprised and possibly be discouraged because it can be more challenging. So a much better mindset is not only to expect the task to be challenging, but to relish the challenge, to look forward to it. Instead of thinking, I have to do this hard task, say to yourself, I have an opportunity to improve and to make progress. I have an opportunity to improve and make progress. Reframing your challenging activities in this way will make them much more attractive. Okay. So when you find an activity attractive, you tend to do it more. So you will tend to spend more time on challenging activities, resulting in more improvement and more progress. Then it's what we call a win-win, right? You're happier now because your positive attitude towards challenges, and you have a positive attitude, and that will make you happier later as you start to make more progress. And you start to build that motivation that you're looking for. So again, remember here, it's how you think about it, okay? So again, if you were to think about what I've been talking about, you got to remember that productivity is the result of effectiveness, which involves filtering out the most important tasks and doing them first, right? Efficiency is doing tasks quickly, and this doesn't necessarily lead to productivity because you'll be spending your time on the wrong tasks. So keep your to-do list as short as possible and do the most important tasks first. Remember having your not to-do list, and avoid perfectionism. Just do it and be willing to make mistakes. This is so important. This was a big lesson for me many years ago, and I brought my team in to have one of our very first management meetings, right? And I realized the fear that they had of making mistakes, and the fear that they had of making mistakes because they had to come back to me and wonder how I would reflect on it and where they would look silly or it was stupid or all these different things that they were fearful of. I had to realize, hey, guys, it's okay to make mistakes. I encourage them to make mistakes. And I encourage you to make mistakes. So, if you're looking for perfectionism, it's going to be very difficult to make mistakes. Therefore, you wonder how much you're going to learn or how much you really get done. And so avoid perfectionism, because otherwise you're just being efficient rather than effective. Again, remember, fake work seems productive, but it's not. Okay. Now, the next step is, I always say to people, work now, and the motivation will follow. Starting is always the hardest part. So when you're thinking about starting, or you're looking for that perfect moment, I want you to ask yourself this question: when is now a good time? When is now a good time? See your challenges as opportunities to improve progress. Just view them positively. So it's really important that we understand this. So let's get back to the topic of this chat, okay? Even though all that has been discussed so far is really important to understand, and we would probably get stuck into it again, by the way, during the call, I'm sure, right? But if we got to look at the words effective and efficient, or effectiveness and efficiency, they're essentially the same as far as general usage is concerned, right? But however, because context is so essential in English language, especially in grammar and composition, using the words effective and efficient should be restricted within their specific definitions, okay? So again, if we think about effectiveness, effectiveness essentially pertains to the capability to produce a desired result, while efficiency means the capability to produce desired results without any waste. Okay, so to be effective is also to accomplish a task regardless of resource consumption. On the other hand, to be efficient is to accomplish a task at minimum cost and maximum possible quality, right? So now we're beginning to see why efficiency and effectiveness are important to work together. Okay. Now, this means that another difference between the two, that efficiency is easily quantifiable or measurable. And what we have to understand that when it comes to using resources and identifying resources as you start to move forward in your goals, your dreams, your business, or whatever it is you want to do, you have to understand that resources can pertain to financial costs. Okay, they can pertain to costs of time and other inputs necessary to accomplish a task. Okay, but a task that is effectively accomplished might involve maximum consumption or allotment of resources, or in some instances, overconsumption of resources. So the importance here about finding the balance. Now, a task that is efficiently accomplished strictly involves minimal resource consumption, as long as it's an effective task. So we want to marry the effectiveness with efficiency here in this case. Okay, so if we were to take into consideration resource consumption, furthermore, effectiveness is only about the output, while efficiency is about the outcome. Okay, so in other words, to be effective is to do the right things, while to be efficient is to do things right. So that sums that up. And we'll understand, and we'll probably elaborate just a little bit more on this. But to be effective is to do the right things, while to be efficient is do things right. So to be effective or efficient, right? Both effectiveness and efficiency pertains to capability to produce a desired result, both of them together. But between the two, however, effectiveness is more general in scope, while efficiency is more specific. So let me share some things that I discovered in my lifetime in personal and business growth. There's a huge difference, by the way, between efficient and being effective. And this is something I learned from this great book and this great man, Stephen Covey. Okay, and Stephen Covey, just in case anybody hasn't heard, has over 1 million copies. Well, actually, probably a lot more than 1 million copies now. There's 1 million copies sold 20 years ago in this book, right, of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that, he shares a huge amount of powerful lessons about personal change. And personal change is something that's going to be very effective when it comes to your business too, if you have business goals. So I think it's really important to understand that. So when we start looking again at efficient people are well organized and they're competent. They check things off their to-do list and they complete projects to get stuff done. Effective people do all of that, but they check the right things off their to-do list. They complete the right projects and they get the right stuff done. So this is why being effective is more important than being efficient, even though efficiency is really important also, if this makes sense. What you got to do is make sure if you're an effective person, you're both effective and efficient. Okay, this is really important because effective people do all that efficient people do, but in that process, they make sure that they check off the right things off the to-do list and they do and complete the right projects and they get the right stuff done. They will execute and produce what makes the biggest difference for their business and for themselves. They're always thinking of the biggest outcomes, the best outcomes. So I'm going to share some traits of, remarkably effective people and why they're so successful, because isn't that what we're here to talk about, right? So, the first thing that really highly effective and remarkably effective people do is they always start with goals. Okay. And when we understand effort, right, and effort is, I suppose, without a genuine purpose, is just effort, right? So effort without a genuine purpose is just effort. Effective people don't just know what to do, they know why. They know why it needs to be done. They have a long-term goal, they have short-term goals that support their long-term goals. But in short, they have purpose, and that purpose informs them of everything that they do. That is why remarkable people appear so dedicated and organized and consistently on task. They're not slaves to a routine, but they're simply driven to reach their goals and to quickly eliminate roadblocks that put aside distractions and stand in the way. And if you want to be a remarkably effective person, which I assume you do, you'll understand that remarkably effective people set their goals first. It's the first thing to do. They set their goals, they identify the outcome, they identify what it means to them. Now, in this process, you have to decide what success means to you. Your definition of success should be different than anyone else's, is yours. But you have to determine what it is. You have to decide what success means to you before you start setting these goals. And again, your success, your definition of success is not because somebody else has done it or somebody else is doing it, or look how wonderful their life is, because it won't matter, because that's not going to be your why. Your definition has to be your definition. That's how you discover why you want to do it, why you're going to do it, and you will do it once you understand this. So if you create and you understand what success means to you and you start creating your definition, then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to find it easy to stay focused and be effective when you truly care about what it is you hope to achieve. Because when you care about what you really hope to achieve, it becomes easier to take the tasks, to do what needs to get done, become more effective. So, you know, even when effective people establish a goal, right? Remarkably, effective people don't focus solely on that goal. What they do, because focusing on the goal means just creating a goal, writing it down, okay? And that's only the first step. So you want to be really effective, you got to follow the next step, which is you got to create systems. So if you're an entrepreneur, your goal is going to be to build a successful businesses. Your system consists of your processes for sales, for marketing, for fulfillment, for operations, etc. You have to create systems. And the goal is great for planning and mapping out what success looks like. A system is great for actually making progress towards the goal. This is my area. This is where I live. Right? This is what I teach day in, day out. And I've met so many people who went and done goals programs and set goals without having a system to follow through. And some of them, by the way, will reach some of those goals because they've focused on them so much that their subconscious have brought them there. But I'm going to show you and tell you here right now how easier it is to achieve those goals if you have a system. So remember, the goal is for planning and mapping out what success should look like, but your system is what's going to actually help you make progress towards that goal. Now, remarkably effective people know a goal can provide direction and even push them forward in the short term. But eventually, a well-designed system will always win. Now, I can say this because that was me. That's my story. That's my story. I was out there chasing a goal. I had a direction and it kept pushing me forward, but it was pushing me forward in the short term. Why? Because I was distracted with other stuff. Okay. And it's only when I actually decided to sit down and create a very, really, really well-defined system that I started to get the real wins. And guess what? If you follow the system, you will always win. And I mean this respectfully. Systems don't fail. People give in. Okay. Now, understand that everyone has goals, but committing to the system makes all the difference in achieving it. Remarkably effective people believe in themselves. They believe in themselves. Diligence is not always easy. Hard work is hard work, guys. Okay? Hard work is hard work. Doesn't matter. Just depends on how you see it. It just depends on your reasons to move forward. Now, pushing forward when success and successes are few and far between takes optimism, but also self-belief. You need to be optimistic about it. You need to be thinking and you need to have self-belief. So we start thinking positive. We start focusing on the positive outcomes, but we have to have that self-belief. We have to have the self-belief that you can do the hard work, and you can. That's why busy people, by the way, give up and effective people keep going. Now, I mean this again respectfully. I mean, you can identify yourself, or maybe you'll identify somebody who is always a busy person. Really, really busy building something, and they seem to be getting momentum, and they're so busy building it, and eventually they become defeated because the work is really hard. They give it up, and here's what happens. Here's my new project, and I'm going to work really hard at this, and I become really busy on this one, and all of a sudden the busy person becomes so busy in a new project again, something else they want to introduce you to, right? Maybe you'd recognize, well, I know people who are watching this never do this because they're perfect, but you know people that do. People who get busy doing more hard work and then giving up because They haven't got that level of optimism or self-belief, or they're not practicing that optimism or self-belief that they actually do have. And that's what really effective people do. So when we understand remarkably effective people also embrace the fact, and it is a fact, that the only way to get where they want to go is to try and to keep on trying, to keep doing something. That is the only way. They know that eventually they will succeed. Because why? Because they believe they are in control of their lives. Many people feel like luck or outside forces has a lot to do with success or failure. If they succeed, wow, luck favored them, right? If they fail, luck was against them. Okay, now, whereas luck certainly does play a certain part in your life in times, but effective people don't hope for good luck or worry about bad luck. They assume the success is totally within their control. I assume that success is totally within my control. If they succeed, they caused it. If they fail, they caused that too. Remarkably effective people waste zero mental energy worrying about what might happen to them. They put all their effort into making things happen. They know that they can never control luck, but they can always control themselves. So you may not be able to control luck, but you can always control yourself. Also, they embrace random, right? And I read this somewhere, when your nose is to the grindstone and all you can see is the grindstone. And that means that you miss opportunities to spot something new. You got to try something different or go off on a fruitful tangent. Effective people stay almost totally on task. Now, this is so important. If you want to be truly effective, if you want to be an exceptionally effective person, you've got to stay focused. You've got to stay on task. And I get tempted, by the way, by opportunity every day. Every day. There is somebody tempting me with opportunity every day. I can guarantee you, I go and check my messages, and maybe I check my emails later, and there's another opportunity. Somebody wants to tempt me with another opportunity. And some of these opportunities are really good. Right? Really good. And I do get tempted. But because I believe I'm truly a remarkably effective person, and I don't see this egotistically, by the way, I build in time and opportunity to experience new things, to try new methods, and benefit from happy accidents. Because if it's an accident and it didn't work, I've got to be happy about what I learned from it. But I'm not always trying to reinvent the wheel. And I found that really remarkably effective people do not try to reinvent the wheel. I don't, by the way, look at opportunity if I have my eyes fixed on a goal. I stay focused until the task is complete. And maybe talk a bit about that again in a moment. But remarkably effective people are not always trying to reinvent the wheel. They're more than happy to adopt somebody else's perfectly functioning wheel, and then they make it turn for them. Remember, success leaves clues, right? You got to find out what other people have done, and you have to discover how you can use it to achieve your goals and stay focused. And you will also discover when you follow the wheel that has been created by somebody else, the chances are there's a clue there, and the chances are that those people who created that wheel and are highly effective people actually are really focused and they don't get distracted. They stay focused on the goal. So, and again, they've left clues. And effective people find happiness in the success of others. Now, I think this is also something that's really, really important to understand. Okay, because great teams win because their most talented members are willing to sacrifice to help others succeed. This is what effective people do. Hugely effective people. And that's why great companies, by the way, are made up of employees who help each other. They know their roles, they set aside their personal goals and values and value team success over everything else. So where does that attitude come from? You have to create that attitude, because I can tell you, if you focus only on yourself, then ultimately you'd be by yourself. Don't let the ego get in the way. So if you focus only on yourself, then ultimately you will be by yourself. So you got to think differently here and understand, to be remarkably effective, find fulfillment in helping other people succeed too. And in the process, you too will succeed in more ways than one, more ways than you can imagine. Remarkably effective people use their goals to make decisions automatic. In a podcast, Tim Ferriss, I actually have his book here. I haven't pulled it down, the 4-hour work week, but he described how Herb Kelleher, who was the CEO of Southwest Airlines, makes so many decisions every day. And this is funny because this is exactly how I make decisions, and it's something how I share, which is, which puts me in a position where I can recognize that I'm actually on the right track, because I do what effective people do. But he applies a simple framework to every issue, and it is quite simple. Will this help Southwest be the low cost provider? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, no. That's quite simply how you make decisions. And like, remarkably effective people apply the same framework to the decisions they make. Will this help me reach my goal? And I ask myself this question every opportunity that's presented to me. I will ask myself this question. And if the answer is no, then I won't do it. Sometimes I got to sit for a while and I got to really assess it and think, how is this moving me towards my goal? If this is going to help me, and if the answer is no, then I just won't do it. And by the way, some people will get upset. This is something you got to be really careful of, because some people get upset when you say this, because they understand, they believe their opportunity, if they're presenting an opportunity to you, right? And you say, well, no, because it's not going to help you reach your goal. And the reason they get upset is because, they think you're not helping them reach theirs. Okay. If somebody says no, that's okay. It's not their goal. And you have to respect that. So for me, I ask, and it's something I teach to people, is when, and anybody who is working with me will understand this. When I ask, will this make the boat go faster? And if the answer is no, then the answer is no. No matter how wonderful, how beautiful it looks, how great an opportunity it looks, or how well it's presented, for me, will this make my boat go faster? Yes or no? If the answer is no, I just won't do it. So if you feel like you're constantly struggling to make decisions, take a step back. Think about your goals. Your goals will help you make decisions. That is what and why remarkably effective people are so decisive. Remember, indecision is born of a lack of purpose. When you know what you truly want, most of your decisions can and should be almost automatic. This is why it's really important that you gotta get focused on what you want. And then it's easy to do the tasks. If you're being indecisive, maybe it's because there is a lack of purpose. Maybe there's a lack of purpose. Maybe you're not sure why it's important to do the tasks that you're doing. And this is why setting those goals will help you dramatically in this. Also, by the way, remarkably effective people don't multitask. Now, most people would believe that to be different. And the multitaskers are looking, going, oh, you're talking about me? Right? Plenty of research says that multitasking doesn't work. Now, some research actually says that multitasking can make you a little lost. Now, maybe you don't agree. Maybe you're wrong. But experience has taught me to try to do two things at once, and you'll do both of them half-assed. And that is not just me. This is the experience I've come across. I'm working with tens of thousands of people over 27 years. And a majority of people that I've worked with who are trying to do two things at once usually end up doing both things half-assed. Remarkably effective people focus on one thing at a time. They do that one thing incredibly well. Then they move on to whatever is next. You follow the process. You follow the plan. You follow the system. you give everything to it. And when you do that one thing incredibly well, and then you move on to the next, whatever's next, you do that one incredibly well also. That's what highly effective people do. Incredibly or highly effective people also are very free to ask for help. Busy people, by the way, ask for help getting something done. Okay, busy people ask for help getting something done. Remarkably effective people ask for help, not just because they need the help, but also because by asking, they show respect for the other person and trust their experience, their skill, or their insight. Mutual respect is the foundation of every solid relationship. And the best way to create a mutual respect is to first show respect. So if you want to be remarkably effective, surround yourself with people who trust and motivate and inspire you, and in turn are inspired by you. Even if you don't achieve all your goals, your life will be infinitely richer. To quote the great Jim Rohn, if you go to work on your goals will go to work on you. If you go to work on your plan will go to work on you. Whatever good things we build end up building us. Now, I have discovered, by the way, in the past that almost everyone I meet is looking for ways to be more efficient, ways in which they can get more stuff done in the limited amount of time that they have. The trouble is that few people focus on being truly effective. And again, there is a massive difference between a person being effective and a person being efficient. We've been discussing this, and again, I want to make sure we reinforce this because this is truly important. Again, remembering that efficiency is doing lots of things. Effectiveness is about doing few things to an exceptional standard. So a different way of explaining it that hopefully everybody gets it. So it requires a real sense of focus and deep thinking. Time, time which is incredibly hard to get in a world that's just full of distractions. Okay, so we got to have deep thinking time and turn off those distractions sometimes. Because when you actually have that sense of focus and you deep thinking, and deep thinking for me, it can be done in minutes, by the way. It can take hours, it doesn't matter. But you got to take the time. Now, we accept that it can be incredibly hard because the world is full of distractions, like we discussed earlier. And it also requires an ability that most people have but don't use. And it's really the ability to turn around to people and say, when they ask you to do more tasks, I can do that. But which one of these priorities that we agreed last week do you want me to stop? Right? Because busy people keep asking people to do more stuff, right? And if people are looking for efficiency, they keep pushing people to do more jobs, and actually don't allow them the time to get things done and get finished. Maybe you have that level of efficiency searching for yourself, and you're having this conversation with yourself. So maybe you have to say to yourself sometimes, I can do that, but which of these priorities that I agreed to do last week should I stop? Which one should I drop? Tough conversation, right? Now, this isn't being unhelpful, by the way. What we want to do is, and we want to be able to challenge you and challenge people to think harder about the most important activities that they want their people working on, and holding them to account for delivering them rather than changing priorities like the wind. Most people just keep changing and don't give anything a chance to work. Now, the reason I'm talking about this because it relates to, I suppose, a core leadership, which is leading by example. Right? And remember, it is not what you say that counts, it's what you do. It's about how you behave that's important. So when you have to understand about being really, really important and efficient, you have to think about how you're behaving. You have to have vision for the future. Now, efficient people have a sense of what they're working towards. But usually it's unclear because it's not written down or because they don't refer to it regularly. And this means that they don't have a clear reference point for what they're working towards. People say, I thought that's what you wanted. I thought I was doing the right thing, but sure, I was doing good work and it looks great, but like what's wrong? And the reality is the problem is it's hard to measure success if you're not working towards some sort of a clearly articulated goal. Now, again, the efficient people work hard and they're usually very proud, and they're very proud of that, right? But if you ask most people who work efficiently, what are they working towards? The answer becomes less clear. How many times you've asked people, okay, we're working really hard, you're building this, but what do you really want? What do you really want? Where's this going to bring you? What are you really going to get out of it? I'm not sure. I'm just going to keep doing it and see where it gets me. And that's efficient. It works sometimes. And it will certainly move you towards a goal, but we want you to become more effective here. And again, when people who are efficient, it might be working towards a promotion, but why are they doing that? Money might be the usual answer, but what's the point in having money if you're not happy? And the answer to this question doesn't really matter. Everyone is unique, and everyone will probably have a different definition of happiness and success. But what matters is that it's written down and is reviewed regularly, so you can become more effective at being efficient, or you can become more efficient at becoming effective.
Why sometimes are we a little almost suspicious if something comes too easily? That it's become
when you say we now, you don't mean me, is that right?
That's correct.
Well, most people, is it?
Others.
Yeah. Well, see, I guess that's experience, Pete, right? And listen, you should be suspicious if something looks like it's coming too easy. Chances are it is, because we know that hard work is hard, right? We've discussed this already this morning, that hard work is hard. And if it is easy, well, then be cautious. Well, that doesn't mean you don't get involved, because you will. I say you will. It's highly unlikely that you won't come across an obstacle or a challenge along the way. And remember, when it's presented to you, it's presented to you in a very way. It's presented to you as easy, because if an opportunity is presented to you by somebody else, it's really fulfilling their goal. So they're going to present it to you as easy. But I have discovered that almost nothing is easy, but it gets easier. And if you want to make it easier, become more effective. Because effective people are clear in their vision, right? They know exactly what it is they're working towards, because they've written it down and they regularly reflect to it. And when you can regularly reflect to it, you will spot the hard parts coming. You will see from a mile off, you see the hard hurdles, the obstacles that you have to jump over. You'll see it, but you'll also see the flat land beyond it. That's only when it gets easy. You know the old saying, it took me 20 years to become an overnight success, right? You got to put in the work. I'm not suggesting that people have to do 20 years, right? Because the success is here, the clues are here, if you only pay attention to them and you follow them. But when you write down and regularly reflect on the things that you're working towards, it means that you can ruthlessly apply the 80-20 rule principle and focus on the activities that truly make a difference. And when you're being highly effective, your daily decision making is driven by one question, always by one question. Will this take me closer to my vision? If not, then simply don't do it. Simply don't do it. So again, if it doesn't make the boat go faster and take us towards your vision, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Now, to-do lists, we already mentioned them. Efficient people have long to-do lists, and effective people have short ones. In battle, the fastest way to be defeated is to try and fight everyone. You spread your resources too thinly to be effective. Long to-do lists are the working equivalent to trying to fight everyone. You end up achieving so little because you're spread too thinly. Efficiency or efficient people have a tendency to say yes to everything because they're keen to impress and want to be helpful. You know anyone like that? The problem with this is that saying yes isn't always the most helpful thing to do. It is often helpful to challenge a leader's thinking and hold them to account for delivering the priorities that they've set. Supporting people by holding on to them on course is helpful to make you a vulnerable member of the team or valuable member of the team, beg your pardon. If effective people have short to-do lists and are masters of delegation. They are ruthlessly focused on few activities. For me, this is always so important. It wasn't always. Remember, I moved from efficiency to effectiveness. I had to start shaping my daily decisions, making me focus on just a few activities so I could get more done. And when you start looking at it, you're going to look at your day and you understand that your day is going to make demands. There's going to be tasks that are going to demand your energy. There's going to be high demand and low demand tasks. Be high levels, low levels. Efficient people just turn up and get to work. They have a list of things to do and they start cracking through them, right? Effective people consider every task ahead of them. Then they think about the ones that require the most effort or even the highest amount of cognitive brain power. For example, you might have to proofread a proposal or report before it gets sent to a client. That requires a really keen eye for detail. So if you leave that to the end of your day, you probably won't do as good a job and proofread as when you were fresh. Now, I'm not saying that you guys do this, but you know somebody who has. You know, people who leave reports at the last minute and just bang it out, or a proposal and it's left right until the last minute, or a quotation that requires a full proposal to go with it. And they keep leaving this at the last minute. They keep avoiding it. And they keep saying, yeah, and they give you all reasons why they're wonderful, why they should, but it's not enough. And usually what happens is it's right at the 13th hour where they send it out. So you need to be more effective. Now, effective people understand this, by the way. They will divide up tasks in accordance with energy levels. This is also important, which is going to take the most of your energy. And when you understand the importance of placing demanding challenges or creative tasks that require maximum energy at the time of the day when you're actually at your best, effective people or even efficient people just work through tasks with little thought as when it's best to do them. But effective people don't. And this is why, again, efficient people just start the day by checking their emails. It gives them a sense that they're getting things done. But the reality is that the emails are rarely the job. And that little bit of dopamine that gets released every time you respond to an email is tricking you into thinking that you're being productive. Emails are necessary, but nobody pays you to write more of them. Okay? And if it's just taking you ages to write one, then perhaps you should just pick up the phone. Wouldn't that be more effective? Sometimes somebody messaging me and I go, listen, just get on the call here. Right? So sometimes pick up the phone. Reflection, which is really important. Sometimes we talk about mature reflection. But people who are efficient, they don't have time to reflect. They're too busy getting things done. And they tend to be future focused and thinking about what needs to be done next week. And they don't seem to get time to do things done. Effective people plan in time to think and reflect. They review what is working and what isn't from time to time, treating it as a fixed spot in their diary. They tend to be present in the moment, which makes them appear calmer and more relaxed. The power of reflection will help you become much more effective. Because I meet so many people who try so hard, and I mean this respectfully, they may try hard to impress people or maybe impress themselves by being efficient. But I don't have the time. I've heard, in part of my mentorship and when I teach people here is about, listen, take the time here to reflect, take the time to plan. And I get some people who don't completely participate because they're too busy. Oh, I don't have the time for that. Or, and let me say this to you respectfully, in this case, you are wrong. You are wrong because you're being efficient rather than being effective. That doesn't mean you won't get results. That won't mean that you won't achieve some outcomes, but I promise you, you're not achieving your best. You're not achieving your best. And I think for the amount of time I've spent in this industry and the amount of people I've worked with, I certainly believe I'm entitled to an opinion of this one, because I've seen it many, many times. And, that's why, personally, for me, reflection is so important. So important, because it helps you change and it helps you catch yourself if you find yourself running on efficiency rather than effectiveness. You also have to discover your boundaries. Efficient people blur the boundaries between being at work and being at home. They justify this to themselves by claiming that this is how they need to behave. They're always on, ready to respond to clients or work emails. They're always the ones stood in the playground responding to emails while the kids run around. Ouch, I hear you say. They're the ones in the gym tapping away between sets of lifts. They're often not in control of their diaries and will attend meetings if requested without any understanding of the context or aims of the conversation. They get around this by bringing in their laptop so they can tap away and respond to emails. Right? They think that no one notices, but the reality is everybody knows, and they may well not be in the room. Ouch, I hear you say again. Effective people are present. If they're at home, they're spending time with their family. If they're at work, they're working. They prioritize their family over work and ruthlessly enforce their boundaries. They don't start the day by checking their emails. Why would they wake up and follow an agenda set by someone else? Why would you start your day following an agenda that's set by someone else? They focus on one thing at a time, using their phone as a tool, not as a boss. Effective people also know the difference between activities you can batch and those that you can't. They create structures and processes to manage these activities. For example, if you're giving yourself all morning to read and write emails, you will take all morning. If you give yourself an hour to get through as many as possible, you are forced to prioritize and to think differently. You might even be forced to walk to someone's desk and talk to them or pick up the phone. This is the process of batching, and it works well for activities that can lead you to drift. For example, researching a topic. But some activities can't be batched, and there's no good working 20 hours a day and then running 20 miles on a weekend. That's not as good as 4 miles a week, 4 by 5 miles a week spread over a week, right? You can't batch sleep, by the way, and save it up for the weekend, right? And you can't even batch a good diet into 2 days a week. Some activities just don't work like that. The trick is you got to know the difference. So if we're going to sum it up, be effective and be efficient at it. And, again, like you have to understand, sometimes the cause is hidden, but the effect is always visible to everybody. The work that you do may go unnoticed, but the outcome won't. So the hard work that you do will probably go unnoticed, but the outcome won't. Once you reach those levels of success, you'll have achieved success. You will do whatever it takes once you're effective at it. The other thing you want to understand, and again, it's a quote from Mir Ezra, which says, if you are the effect of it, you caused it. Whatever it is, if you are the effect of it, you caused it. And again, remember, behind every effect, there is a cause, and you can never eliminate an effect without first understanding its cause. And to quote again the great Jim Rohn, success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is a natural consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals. Efficiency is doing lots of things. Effectiveness is about doing a few things to an exceptional standard. How you do anything is how you do everything. This relates to work, parenting, leadership. If you want your people to be successful high performers, then you have to show them the way. You have to lead by example. It's not what you say, it's what you do and how you behave that counts. So what are you? Efficient or effective? And the final note is, listen, pay attention, learn how to be happy with what you have while you pursue all that you want. Have an outstanding day.
Pat, thank you for your mature reflections.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it.